Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be looking at the top transfers going into double game week 29. In particular, I want to focus on some budget forwards that I really think could be fantastic differentials for your team. So if you are new around here, make sure you do consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you enjoy the video, make sure you do drop a like. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first up, we're going to be looking at these differential budget forwards. And on your screen here, you can see Ferguson, Johnson of Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth's Solanke. Now, I really like the budget forward going into double game week 29, as it enables the cash available for you to then free up to maybe bring in a premium midfielder in the shape of maybe Bruno Fernandes, or maybe even the Egyptian king in Mo Salah. And I think these three here are the best of the bunch. Brighton's Ferguson, Nottingham Forest's Johnson, and Bournemouth's Solanke. Now, on your screen here, you can see the general underlying stats and value of each player. Ferguson being the cheapest at 4.6 million, and Johnson being the most expensive at 5.7. Now, first and foremost, I think we need to focus on the fixtures at hand that each team has. So for Brighton, they have a double game week in 29 at home against Brentford and away against Bournemouth. They then blank in game week 32, but then importantly, double in game week 34 at home against Wolves and at home against Man United. Now, Bournemouth, on the other hand, in the shape of Dominic Solanke, he actually has, I would expect, the best double game week in 29 at home against Fulham and at home against Brighton. They have no blank, but they don't double in game week 34. And last up, Nottingham Forest. They double in game week 29 at home against Wolves and away against Leeds. And importantly, don't double in game week 34. And with fixtures in the shape of Villa away, Man United at home, Leeds away, and Brentford away over that period, I really do think that they have probably one of the trickier runs out of the three teams in the foreseeable future. Now, when we are looking at the underlying stats for each player, expected goals per 90, Ferguson is leading the way, but it is worth noting he has the smallest sample size. He's played the less minutes in this Brighton team, but 0.48 expected goals per 90 is really promising reading, and he has proven to be a bit of a goal scorer in this Brighton team when he has had the minutes. But from a chance creation perspective, he definitely is the spearhead of that Brighton team rather than being a chance creator at only 0.04 expected assists per 90. Big chances per 90, he's getting them a plenty in this Brighton team at 0.58 per 90. Now, when we compare that to the likes of Johnson and Solanke, I firstly want to touch on the fact that Johnson and Solanke's minutes are a lot more secure than that of Ferguson. At Brighton, we've seen Welbeck and Ferguson share minutes, whereas Johnson and Solanke are very much the starters in their teams, and Brennan Johnson in particular being the talisman in that Nottingham Forest team. Now, Johnson shaves Solanke from an expected goals perspective at 0.27, but Solanke just shades the expected assists per 90 at 0.14. But I think it's quite clear here that neither one is necessarily getting into unbelievable goal scoring opportunities consistently from an expected goals per 90 perspective. And you can also see that in the reflection of the big chances per 90. Solanke in particular really not looking good in the underlying stats department. Now, from an expected FPL points perspective, Ferguson still leads the way, and I understand why a lot of managers are being attracted to Ferguson as their differential budget forward. Now, I think the big caveat that we need to have in regards to Ferguson is that he is taking up an important Brighton slot if we do see his minutes get managed. With the likes of Matoma, March, McAllister, Estupinan, all of these being fantastic Brighton assets, I really do think having the triple up of Brighton is not necessarily essential, but definitely important for our team structures. And while I do think Ferguson could be that third Brighton position, if we were to see him get limited minutes, maybe Welbeck comes into the team, I think you're using up a really valuable Brighton spot with someone like Evan Ferguson. So that's the main caveat I have to say about Ferguson, because based on the underlying stats, based on the way that Brighton are playing as a team and the fixtures coming up, I think Ferguson is clearly the best budget differential forward, but you just need to remember you are using a valuable Brighton spot if you were looking to potentially focus your attention on Ferguson getting guaranteed minutes. So when it comes down to Johnson versus Solanke, I am favouring Solanke as the better option. Johnson is slightly more expensive, 0.2 million more expensive, and the fixtures are really not attractive. Bournemouth's, that double in 29 is really attractive, and importantly, they have good home games against West Ham, away against Southampton, and the other home game being at home against Leeds in game week 34. So on the general consensus, Solanke is the route that I would go for if I was picking a budget differential forward. His predicted points over the next three are the best of all three, but it is worth noting, I think if Ferguson plays 90 minutes in the next 3 game weeks, he is certainly going to be one of those that's going to be pushing Solanke for those predicted points. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. I'd be really interested to know which budget forward you'd be tempted to go for in double game week 29. So next up, let's move on to a bit more of a pricier asset in the game that I think has definitely become a top of our agenda right now. And that man is, of course, going to be Mo Salah, back on the menu after their double game week 34 announcement, where they will have Spurs and Fulham at home. And we need to remember they were already attractive assets with their double in game week 29. And while one would argue it is definitely the toughest on paper, away against Man City and away against Chelsea before playing Arsenal in game week 30, we have seen Liverpool actually perform better against the big teams than that of the smaller teams like Leeds in game week 31. Now, the reason why I really do like Mo Salah, first and foremost, is a lot of people talk about him having a terrible season so far, but he is still top for all midfielders at expected goals per 90 at 0.5, and he is still delivering in the expected assists per 90 at 0.28. And it's worth noting these underlying stats are post-World Cup, so game week 17 to game week 28. And I still really like the numbers. Shots in the box per 90, 2.09, and his expected FPL points per 90 is 6.35. So again, top of the bunch for midfielders. And being 12.8 million, I think the big question comes back to, can we afford Mo Salah into our teams? We know in a previous video that I've done, Bruno Fernandes is the popular transfer for a lot of FPL managers, and rightly so because of Man United's fixtures coming up. They too double in game week 29 and in game week 34, and I would argue the doublers are better for Man United than they are Liverpool. But what I really do like about Mo Salah is he has suddenly become a differential in the game. From live ownerships, he is around the 20% owned mark, and we've never seen a season where Mo Salah is at this ownership. And it's also important to note that they don't have any other cup commitments in the Champions League, in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, of course. So they are fully focused on the league to get that top 4, whereas the likes of Man United need to juggle the Europa League. And of course, the likes of Man City and Arsenal need to balance other European competitions. So that reason alone, I really do like Mo Salah as a differential, quote unquote, in the upcoming game weeks. Now, the big caveat that I need to say in regards to Mo Salah is going to be whether we are desperately needing him. As I mentioned, I do think Liverpool do perform better in these tougher fixtures, but Mo Salah himself, from an away form perspective, hasn't been delivering away from Anfield. It is worth noting the underlying stats definitely are worse away than they are at home. And the other reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to bring in Mo Salah into our teams is, first and foremost, the value. Is very difficult to squeeze him in if you are looking to sell an Arsenal midfielder and go up to Mo Salah. You're likely going to have to sell a forward in the shape of Harry Kane for you to afford Mo Salah into your team. But the other reason is the fixture that really does stand out is the Nottingham Forest game in game week 32 at home. But a lot of managers right now are pointing game week 32 as their potential free hit territory. So the question is, do we need Mo Salah when we know we are free hitting in game week 32? And I think the answer is probably not. You could definitely swerve this double game week, and Arsenal at home is always going to be a tough game. Leeds away feels like a good entry point if you do want to buy him. But again, free hitting in game week 32 at home against Forest feels like you can have the luxury of bringing in Mo Salah. And then if you don't want to bring him in at 33, you bring him in for 34 when they double against Tottenham and Fulham. And then you could hold him from then until the end of the season where their fixtures are very, very good. So to conclude, I think if you want to go Mo Salah, it's definitely an option that is viable for you as a manager, but you first and foremost need to have the funds in place to do so, knowing that if you're currently Haaland-less, you need to try and have a way of bringing Haaland back in while also accommodating Mo Salah in game week 29. So for me, although I really want to bring in Mo Salah, I think it's going to have to wait, maybe free hit him in game week 32, and then look to transfer him in either 33 or 34 for the back end of the season. But let me know in the comments, guys. I'd be really interested to know if you're planning on bringing in Mo Salah into your FPL team. So last up, I've got a 4-player comparison on some players that I think are truly differentials that could propel you up your mini leagues in the coming game weeks. And those are going to be Bowen and Benrahma of West Ham and Barnes and Maddison of Leicester. Now, a lot of players here that haven't necessarily been talked about a lot. Bowen and Benrahma in particular, West Ham's form this season has been shocking. And it's meant that Bowen and Benrahma's ownership has been so low compared to, in particular, Bowen's of last season, where he was the talisman in that West Ham team. Now, just to give you a bit of a perspective on the West Ham fixtures coming up, they have an amazing double in game week 29 at home against Southampton and at home against Newcastle. They then have some really favourable fixtures like Bournemouth away, either side of Arsenal and Liverpool, but then they double in game week 34 away against Palace and away against Man City. So some really nice fixtures along the way. But again, it is worth noting, if you are free hitting in game week 32, the one that really stands out is the Bournemouth away game that you likely would free hit some West Ham players into your team. So first up, let's focus on Bowen and Benrahma. Benrahma being considerably cheaper than Bowen, 5.5 compared to the 8 million of Bowen. But what's really important here is the expected goals department. Benrahma is really dominating Bowen, and he's also leading the way for expected assists per 90, but there's only 0.1 in that, so we'll give or take that one there. Big chances as well, really surprisingly, back end of last season, we saw Bowen being the one going beyond the play and getting all those big chances in the 18-yard box, but it's actually Benrahma who's picking up more big chances than that of Bowen. And while Bowen is leading the way for predicted points in the game week 29 and in the next 3 game weeks, I am definitely going to be on the side of Benrahma if you're planning to bring in a West Ham midfielder. I see no evidence here to justify Bowen is worth the 8 million price bracket. And I would much rather managers, if they are tempted to go for a West Ham asset, to go for Benrahma as their punt. You don't need to pay the additional for Bowen. And if he does go off, then you just accept that he is on a bit of a purple patch. And the underlying stats don't necessarily suggest Bowen is going to dominate Benrahma from an FPL points return. And also worth noting, Benrahma on penalties is an extra string to his bow. Now moving on to the Barnes and Maddison comparison here. There is another very big difference between the prices. 6.7 for Barnes, 8.2 million for Maddison. Now, whereas Barnes is leading the way for expected goals per 90, Maddison is clearly the chance creator in this Leicester team at 0.36. Barnes as well leading the way for big chances per 90 at 0.66. So Barnes is really looking appealing, whereas Maddison not necessarily delivering in the big chances perspective. But why Maddison is so attractive is the bonus point area compared to Barnes's. Barnes has had 0 bonus points so far this season, which is really, really poor. Whereas Maddison is currently averaging per 90 minutes, 0.34. So that is where the big difference is in these assets. Barnes is effectively just a runner in this Leicester team. He'll get some shots off, but because he doesn't really link up the play, no key passes, he literally misses big chances and bombs on the bonus points. Whereas Maddison does so much good stuff that he's always in and amongst the bonus. And if he picks up an assist or a goal, then we are looking at those 8, 9, 10 point returns for him. Whereas Barnes doesn't really get those big hauls that we are looking for from the bonus points. So whereas Benrahma is definitely the better choice over Bowen, even though Barnes is performing in the expected goals and big chances department, I'm still going to favour Maddison in the coming game weeks, even though he is more expensive. I know a lot of you out there have those Arsenal assets and maybe looking to go sideways, whereas I think you could free up the funds to go Benrahma. I wouldn't go Barnes over Maddison in this case. I think Maddison is worth his weight in gold in terms of the value perspective over Barnes, and we know Maddison is going to be playing every single minute over this period. And in regards to Leicester, the double is great in game week 29 and game week 30 is fantastic at home against Bournemouth. And while game week 31 was tricky away against Man City, after that the fixtures are still really, really good for Leicester. So I would probably prioritise bringing in a Leicester midfielder over West Ham, but I still think Benrahma plus Maddison are really fantastic differentials for your team. So guys, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 29 top transfers video. We did do a previous video regarding the top transfers where I focused more on the highly owned popular transfers that I really recommend you checking out, as it is still totally relevant. And if you did enjoy this, make sure you do drop a like and hit that subscribe button. And I will see you on Friday's live stream where I'll be answering all of your questions. Take care, guys. Cheers.